everyone, and welcome to the Kiki London YouTube channel. My name's Amanda, and in today's video we are going to be doing a neon and black gel polish design. So I really hope you all enjoy watching. Starting off today, we are working on some practice tips, and I'm going to come straight in with my base coat. Of course, if you are working on yourself or a client, you would need to do all of your prep before coming in with your base coat. As always, I do have a dedicated prep video which I'll leave linked in the description box below in case you have any questions on how to prep your natural nails. So today we are using RB02, which is a beautiful shade in the rubber colour base collection. I'm really loving the rubber colour bases as colours at the moment, so I'm going to be using this as my base colour as well. Now with my first coat for my base coat, I kind of like scrub that in to the nail, and then with the second coat, I more float it on. So as you can see what I'm doing here, I'm just going over it just to get a nice even application. It does self-level beautifully. So I did that on all four nails. So all four nails have had 2 coats of RB02. And as you can see, this is a really beautiful peachy nude shade. And if you wanted to have a more natural look, you could just do 1 coat of this and then pop your top coat over the top, or your design over the top. The rubber colour bases are really versatile. I personally love a lot of them with 2 shades because I do like the more full-on opaque coverage. Now, as you see here, I then come in with the Kiki London No White matte top coat. I wanted a matte top coat because I'm going to be doing a lot of hand painting, and whenever I'm doing hand painting on camera and for ease, I always prefer to do it over a matte surface. But this kind of is personal preference. It is just what I find easier. Now, on to our nail art. I've taken coconut and I've popped that down on a palette, and then I'm going to come in with my strap liner brush. Now, for this particular design, I have seen this design all over Instagram, probably over the last year or so. But a lot of the time when I see this technique done, it's done with pigments. And I'll be honest, I don't really ever use pigments that much. I do have some neon ones, but I find they can be a little bit messy, and they're not one of my go-to things to use at the moment. So I wanted to see if I could replicate this design, but do it with all gel polish. So in this design, I'm going to come in on all 4 of the nails, and everywhere that I want to do a neon pattern, I'm going to come in and do my white down first. This is just to make it a lot easier because I'm going to be doing ombres with the neons. So kind of imagine if you were trying to do the ombre and create the shape that you want that design to be in, it would be a little bit tricky. So by doing it all in the white first, you've already got the shape to create it, if that makes sense. So as you see on that first nail, we simply drew like a square box. On this nail, I want a French tip, so I'm doing that using the French brush. On the next nail, I've swapped back to that strap liner brush, and I'm coming across, and we're just going to do a stripe across the nail. Wanted these to look quite blocky, kind of funky and fun, a bit like, I suppose they've got a little bit of an abstract vibe to them as well. You could definitely layer something else over the top, like some leaves or some stamping, but you'll see how this design comes together as we go through the video. On the final now, I'm doing a kind of like a triangle shape down at the cuticle area, and I really loved how this one looked because it was quite fun and funky. Now at this point with the white base, I'm not worrying about my lines being super neat or super crisp, because I'm going to be coming along the edges of those once we've done the neon with some stripe line and nail art tape as well. So they don't have to be perfect, which is another thing that's brilliant about this design, because I know it can be tricky to get super sharp crisp lines. So now that we've got all of the white done, this is what our design is looking like so far. It looks a little bit random, but like I said, this is one of those designs where everything comes together more towards the end. So now let's move on to the fun part, the neons. Here I have Mi Lava, which is a beautiful neon orange. If you haven't tried the Kiki London neon shades, you really do have to. They are amazing. This one is one of my favorites. This is the purple, which is Diva. If you've watched the channel, you'll know that I am a huge purple lover, so I do especially love this one. And then we have the pink, which is Raving Doll. How pretty is this pink? The neon colours, I feel as though they probably get used a lot more in the summer months, but this particular design I've already started seeing again over Instagram, so I definitely had to get some bright colours out, especially after all the winter, Christmas and then Valentine's nails. Finally, this is the first time I've used neons in a while. So starting off on the first now, we've cured all of our white, so we're moving on to applying our neon design over the top of the white. And with this design, you want to do your best to keep it just over the top of the white. So if you're able to keep everything nice and neat, it does make it a little bit easier. So I've come in, I've placed down the Milava at the first sort of section of that white, and then I've swapped to the Raving Doll. And then keeping with my stripe liner brush, I'm going to start blending those two colours together. Now, usually when I'm doing any kind of blend or ombre, I would use my ombre brush, but obviously because we're working on a very tiny section of the nail, I'm just going to use my stripe liner brush. Now, I'm not stressing too much about creating the most perfect ombre, again, because it's on such a tiny part of the nail. You're not going to be able to get a very, well, you probably could. The more you play around with it, the more you'll get a perfect spot on blend, but it's not going to be massively noticeable because you are only doing this on a small section of the nail. But these two colours, they did blend very well together anyway. The pink and the purple. The purple is a little bit more pigmented than the pink, for example, so it overtook the pink a little bit. So you can see that sometimes I'm dipping my brush into the pink gel polish and using that to blend the two colours together. But overall, these three colours did blend really well together. Now, I'm only going to be doing a one coat for all of my ombres because I wanted kind of like a soft textured look. I didn't want a full-on pigmented vibe. So if you do want to do this, but you want your ombre, or sorry, your neons to look a lot more bold and in your face, then definitely come in and do a second coat. The colors are very versatile, so it depends on the look you're going for, but I kind of wanted a little bit like a watercolor effect. Now, as you see there, I took my angled nail art brush and I just cleaned up the edges, and then we're going to pop that now aside and work on the next one. When I'm working like this, I'll just pop everything into cure together at the end. So here again, I've taken my French brush, loaded it up with the Raving Doll, and I'm coming along where we've got our French already created with the white base. It's a lot easier to come over the top with the second coat. I then cleaned off my brush and I've dipped into the orange. We are just going to be using the pink and the orange on this one. And then again, I'm going to, on this one, use my ombre brush because we're working on a bit of an easier surface. So I'm just blending those together. But rather than using it how I normally would use it, I'm kind of just using it in different angles to blend those two colours together. And I'm just using the very tips of the brush to pull the two colours in. This was the only nail that I ended up doing two coats on because I work very thin, or I did in this video, with my French brush. So I felt as though it just needed a little bit more of a second coat, especially where the pink was. It was showing the white a little bit too much. On to the stripe. This nail I thought was one of my favourite ones. I really loved how it worked. I used the pink and the purple here, and I think these two colours work beautifully together. So same as before, we're just popping the pink down on one side, trying to keep it as neat as possible. So I'm trying to make sure that I only keep it on top of that white. And as you can see here, I left this bit in. I'm cleaning up my brush on one of the Kiki London alcohol pads. These are what I clean all of my brushes on. They are amazing. And then I'm going to come in with the Diva on the other side. And like I said, I just really love how these two shades work together. They complement each other beautifully. So what we're going to do here is I'm cleaning off my brush. You want to make sure when you're blending everything together, you have got a semi-clean brush. And then as you can see, I'm just going backwards and forwards to really mix and blend those two colours together. And they do just melt into each other beautifully. The Kiki London range of gel polishes, they all have such a lovely consistency that I find they do blend very, very well. Usually when I'm doing any kind of blend, I'll do two coats, so I won't stress too much on the first coat about getting a perfect blend. But where we are just doing the one coat on this, I'm coming in and trying to perfect it as much as possible. So I've taken a little bit too much of the pink into the purple, so I'm coming back in just adding on a little bit more purple to fix that up. Then I'm just wiping my angled nail art brush on that alcohol pad just so it's got a tiny bit of alcohol on it. You really don't need loads, and then you're able to clean up and get a nice crisp neat line. But like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect because we will be applying those nail art line art stickers over the top. On this now, again, I wanted to come in with all three colours. So starting off with me lava, and then we're going in with Raving Doll. And the stripe liner brush is brilliant for this because just like when you were painting on the white, you're able to get a nice neat edge to your line with it. It holds the perfect amount of gel polish in my opinion. It's a long brush, but it's not too thick, so it doesn't hold too much gel polish, which then if you've got too much polish on your brush, it's a nightmare to control on the nail. I find this brush holds just the perfect amount. It is my favorite brush out of all of the Kiki London brushes. Lastly, on the very bottom part of the triangle, we're going to come in with Diva. As you can see as well, this brush is great for filling in little areas that you're hand painting as well. I did just need a little bit more gel polish on my palette there. So here what I've done is I've popped all three colours down, and then I'm going to start blending them together. You'll see that whenever my hand goes out of shot, I'm just cleaning my brush up on that little alcohol pad. You want to try and be careful to clean up your brush as much as possible so you're not taking too much of one colour into the previous colour. And as you can see, the purple and the pink are starting to blend together really well. Now this did get a little bit messy on this nail, like we're starting to come off that triangle a little bit, but it doesn't matter because we can wipe it up with the angled nail art brush. So at this point I was just perfecting that blend. And then again, look how easy the angled nail art brush makes cleanup. It's a nice and firm brush, so it's brilliant for getting a nice crisp line as well. So this is what our nails are looking like now. All the neon is done, so we're going to pop those in to cure for 30 seconds. Then I did decide, like I said, on the French nail to come in and do a second coat. So here you can see I've loaded up my French brush with the Raving Doll to begin with, just because I wanted that pink to really pop against the rubber colour base, and the line just needed a little bit more colour. So we're going to come in with both colours just so it's nice and even, and again just blend them together. I just used the stripe liner brush to blend together here, and look how beautiful that blend is. I quite like this. I don't know if I've ever done a neon ombre French tip, but I definitely feel like this is a look I need to try more with some of the other Kiki London neon shades. Now, before we finish off with the line art stickers, I do want to come in and add on some kind of clashes of areas with the Kiki London black gel polish. So the Kiki London black gel polish is called Black Heart, and it is a very pigmented black. It is so beautiful to work with as well. Sometimes black gel polishes can be tricky to work with. If you apply them too thickly, they won't cure properly or they'll wrinkle when you put them in the lamp. But I find the Kiki London Black Heart cures perfectly. You don't need to apply it thickly because it's a very pigmented gel. I'm only going to do one coat again because we're only using it for nail art purposes. But if you was doing a full cover nail with it, 2 coats, 2 thin coats, and it cures beautifully. So for this design, we're just adding a few black details. Like I said, I've seen this design on Instagram, so I'd checked out, oh gosh, around 10-15 different pictures of these style designs and kind of just use them as inspiration. So on this now, where we've got the French, I wanted to just do a black cuticle cuff. On the first now, where we had the square box, I decided to do another square box, but just a bit smaller. And then we're going to do a similar on this nail as well, where we've got the stripe going across the nail. I'm kind of just going to do a small stripe or rectangle, I suppose it would look like on the nail, using that black gel polish. And I think it just adds I really love these kind of designs where they're two colors that really clash and they clash but complement each other, like neons with black. It just does seem to work, doesn't it? So on to the last now, I'm just going to come on this now and just do a swoosh across the nail. I was going to do a triangle at the tip of the nail, but I just wasn't 100% sure how it would look once we come in with the line art stickers. So I kept with just doing a black swoosh across the nail, and I quite liked how it looked. Now, as you can see, the striped liner brush makes this kind of nail art effortless. Due to the length of it, it's brilliant for any kind of straight lines, swooshes, any little details that you're doing like we did on the designs today. So once we had popped these into cure, this is what our design is looking like so far, but I want nice crisp lines against those neons. So I'm going to take the new Kiki London liner now stickers. These are very similar to striping tape, but a lot easier to work with. So as you can see, I've peeled one up. I've selected the size. There are a few different sizes to choose from on the stickers. So I've selected the size and I've cut this out. And then I'm just trying to make sure I get this as straight and as neat as possible. So I'm lining it up against that square or rectangle that we created, and then I'm going to stick it down. Now, the great thing about these stickers is they are super sticky. So if you stick them down and you're not happy with how it's placed, you can lift it up and replace it down. And then all I'm doing is I like to get them in place on the nail first and then cut off any of the excess. And then once I'm happy with how they're placed down, then I'll come over with my silicone tool, really give it a rub, and this really makes them adhere to the nail. So I like to do this last once I'm happy with how it's placed down, because once you've given it a good rub with the silicone tool, they stick down really well, that they're then a lot harder to remove, if not impossible. So make sure that you're happy with how it's lined up before you come over with your silicone tool. So again, here I'm placing down this one. Now, the first part of this was fairly easy. The second one was a little bit tricky to line up, but I'm just cutting off that excess, and then I'm going to grab another piece of the tape and I'm kind of just flipping the nail around. It's a little bit tricky because you need two hands, and where I'm having to hold the tip, it makes it harder. It's a lot easier to do on a person. When you are sticking these down around the cuticle area, I usually lift up the sticker, trim it, and then we'll stick it back down, because obviously it's a little bit harder to cut around that cuticle area. If you're not comfortable cutting close to the client's side walls or skin as well, you can also cut as close as possible and then buff off the excess. Now, I did do the last nail off camera. Well, I had recorded it, but for some reason it went out of focus. But as you can see, I did exactly the same along that stripe. And then that's all of the nail art finished, so we're ready to come in and top coat. Now, I opted to do a matte top coat today because I really love neons matte, and I thought these turned out brilliantly matte. But with the matte top coat, it does go on glossy. So here you can get an idea of what the design would look like if you'd have popped a glossy top coat over the top. And then that brings us to the end of the design. So these were a lot of fun to do, and I personally definitely found it easier to do with gel polish than pigments. But let me know what you guys thought in the comments below. If you did enjoy today's video, please do give it a thumbs up, and if you're not already subscribed to the channel, I would absolutely love it if you did. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Lots of love. Take care. Bye bye.